Hello and welcome to the Butler Collegian Newscast. I'm Catalina Gallegos.
And I'm Nicki Clark.
Although Tripp's official retirement is not until May 9th, Butler Blue III, best known as Tripp, will be passing his collar down to Butler Blue IV on February 29th. Blue IV had his debut on January 22nd and has since started puppy training at Bark Tutor School for Dogs. Once Blue completes his personalized training plan, he'll begin to work on mascot training. This training will consist of mostly shadowing Tripp at games and his walks around campus. Blue will soon begin to go on Butler-bound trips to give prospective students their acceptance letters, and he will also be traveling to New York alongside Tripp for the Big East tournament.
Butler students are no longer allowed to bet on any Butler sports. The new policy, which was announced on January 31st, states that trustees, faculty, staff, students, and independent contractors may have greater access to information about Butler's athletic teams that could impact the outcome of competitions. Student athletes and anyone in the athletic department were already prohibited from betting on Butler sports before this policy was announced. If a student is betting on Butler sports or student athletes, they should be reported to Vice President of Student Affairs, Frank Ross. If students are reported for placing bets on Butler sports, the policy states that they are subject to appropriate disciplinary action up to and including dismissal.
A new bill passed by Indiana's legislature allows minors to be tried as adults. Jake had the chance to sit down with Collegian reporter Zachary Gossett to get more information on what this bill means.
Thanks, guys. Joining me now is Zachary Gossett of the opinion section here at the Butler Collegian. Now, he's written a recent article about in Bill 449 that was just passed by the Indiana State Senate. Zach, thanks for coming to the show. What can you tell us about this bill that's just gotten passed?
Right, so originally the bill came out as a response to the Noblesville school shooter. The senator that authored the bill suggested that a loophole in our system meant that the school shooter couldn't be tried as an adult and receive adequate punishment. But since then, the bill has been amended to remove that provision. So now it simply expands the direct file waiver system in the state, which says that individuals who commit a certain list of violations, now even an attempt to commit those violations, would mean that they would not go to juvenile court, they would go immediately into adult court.
Mm-hmm. And so what sort of things led you to investigate this sort of thing? Obviously, I'm sure you had previous opinions on the matter as it was getting passed, but what made you want to write this article in the first place?
Right, so I've always had an interest in criminal justice issues. And that was really sparked by reading Just Mercy when I came as an incoming first year to Butler University. It really opened my eyes to those issues. And when I heard about this legislation, I was reminded of Ian Manuel's story, who was even brought to Butler University. He was present, his narrative was present in that book, mm-hmm. and it really reminded me of that story and the stories in that book, and made me fearful for the future of the youth in our state.
It's an interesting book for sure. Now, obviously, with that article coming out this week, what were your opinions on the matter as it's getting passed?
Yeah, so, to put it lightly, I was extremely upset. The idea that I'm born and raised Hoosier, the idea that my state would pass a measure like this that shifts the criminal justice system towards young people to be more punitive was just extremely upsetting, and completely ignores the potential for rehabilitation that youth have because they're still developing and they can grow into be contributors to our state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's for sure going to be mixed responses as this is pushed through the state government. Zachary, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, back to you at the desk.
It seems like he has a lot of interest in that.
It definitely makes a difference when someone writes about something they're passionate about.
Butler has raised $32 million of their $55 million goal for student scholarships in the Butler Beyond campaign. Butler currently provides $77 million in student scholarships each year, which mostly comes out of Butler's annual budget. Vice President of Advancement Jonathan Purvis said, quote, "We've got to make this education that we provide as accessible as possible to our students," end quote.
The Lambda Chi Alpha Fraternity and Tri Delta Sorority have announced their housing plans for next school year, since both houses will be under construction. Lambda is in the process of renting the Phi Kappa Psi house, which is located next to the Alpha Phi sorority house. Though the agreement has not been finalized, contracts are in the process of being drafted. Active Tri-Delta members will have the opportunity to live in the University Terrace apartment complex while their house is being renovated next school year. It is possible that University Terrace will be reserved solely for members of the sorority, but that will depend on the number of members planning to live there.
According to an announcement made by Butler on January 31st, all students who visit Butler Health Services will now be screened for the coronavirus. The university also announced in the same email that they will be suspending all university travel to and from China for faculty, staff, and students. There have not been any reported cases of the coronavirus at Butler or in Indiana, but the university is taking precautions.
Construction on Butler's new science facilities is well underway. The 36-month-long project is Butler's largest investment ever, with an expected price tag of $100 million. Much of the work being done right now is utility work, which will provide the new infrastructure necessary for the addition and renovation. In addition to providing more classrooms with updated technology, the new space will provide areas for collaboration. The changes will aim to provide a modern facility for the sciences that can be grown into.
Now it's time to see what's going on around the world with this week's edition of Kat's Corner.
Thanks, guys. This week, the film Parasite won Best Picture at the Oscars. This isn't just an awards win, though, but is in fact a very, very important thing. Of course, this Sunday was the 92nd Academy Awards, recognising the best cinema of the year. However, the Oscars have been accused of continuously ignoring the talent of women and minority individuals, which has caused the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite to trend this year. There were no women nominated in the directors category and only one person of colour in all of the acting categories, Cynthia Erivo for Harriet. Parasite's win was particularly important for the Asian American community, as only 3 Asians in the entire history of the awards have ever won and have only made up 1% of all nominations, which does not translate to the generally positive opinion of many Asian American-led projects over the years. This is why Parasite winning is so monumental. Parasite is from South Korean director Bong Joon-ho, who has now got a cult-like status after the film's success. It's the first time that a foreign language film has ever won Best Picture. It's been widely critically acclaimed, and there are very few people saying that the award was not deserved. Some have said that the Oscars have finally realised the wealth of talent coming out of South Korea and Asia in general. Representation on screen is so important, and this is a huge step towards that. But the Oscars are very much not there yet, and have a long way to go to dilute the male whitewash of the Academy. Parasite's win was a surprise and a win for film. Make sure you guys give it a watch. Back to the studio.
Thanks, Kat. Now to bring the news closer to home, we have Jake Bedell to get us all caught up in the world of Butler sports. Jake, what's going on?
Well, Nikki, I know it was about a week ago, but I just can't help but think about that Villanova matchup that happened last Wednesday. These teams were neck and neck the whole way. Energy in the building was fantastic. The lineup had Aaron Thompson back, and then this happens. The Hinkle Sprinkle. A leak in the field house roof led to an early 20-minute rain delay, and when time is of the essence and all hope seems lost, a bucket comes to save the day. Dogs and the Wildcats get to resume play. Butler up at halftime, 42-38. How about the work from Bryce Golden and Sean McDermott? 39 points between the two of them, but still not enough to distance Butler. Tied up in the dying seconds. Give it to Baldwin. ISO, step back, ice cold. Dogs win it at the buzzer, 79-76 over Nova. They had high hopes that the performance would translate on the road against Marquette on Sunday. No dice. Butler's defense held Marcus Howard to only 17 points, his fewest in Big East play, but he had a little backup coming from Kobe McEwen, 16 points from him. The Dogs looking for similar support, but they just couldn't find it. 20% from beyond the arc wouldn't cut it. Kumar battled through late foul trouble, but the Dogs still fall 76-57. Last week's results keep Butler at number 19 in the AP Top 25 ranking. They dropped 4 spots and 14th in the net rankings. They'll hope to boost that with a pair of home games against Xavier Wednesday night and Georgetown comes Saturday. Things have been rough for the Dogs as of late, dropping 5 of their last 8 games. Still, there's time to rewrite the script in Big East play, but so far it hasn't been the prettiest of results. Still, Butler grabbed the attention of the selection committee, who picks the top 16 seeds in preliminary discussion for March Madness. To get a glimpse as to where Butler sits in their ranking, Chelsea Groves is here for another edition of the Collegian Basketball Breakdown.
Thanks, Jake. Hey everyone, Chelsea Groves here with the Collegian Basketball Breakdown. A busy week awaits for Butler after falling to Marquette on the road on Sunday. Wednesday night, they'll see Xavier for the first time this season and Georgetown on Saturday. We're in the second week of February. The Bulldogs are 6-5 in Big East play, 5 Big East teams are ranked in the AP poll, the first time since the conference reconfiguration in 2013. But I want to talk about some recent news. Last Saturday, the NCAA Selection Committee told the nation their top 16 teams for the NCAA Tournament Bracket Preview. Where are the Bulldogs at? Butler is a projected number 4 seed in the East region, along with San Diego State at the number 1, Duke number 2, and Maryland number 3. Great news for Butler despite losing 5 of their last 8, but the net quad 1 win over Villanova last week, who is the number 12 overall seed by the selection committee, was critical for this Butler team. Some important information about the top 16 teams. The projected top 7 won all of their games last weekend, and the projected 8 through 16 seeds went 3-5. A poll comparison from the NCAA put the selection committee, Andy Katz's Power 36, net ranking in the AP poll side by side through 16. Butler is featured twice, number 15 overall in the selection committee and number 14 in the net ranking. Now a shift back to this weekend. If Butler can get wins over Xavier and Georgetown, 2 winnable home games, it'll help Butler stay in that top 16 conversation because you know other teams around you will lose conference games, and it's college basketball in February. Jake, back to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. Moving along to women's hoops, it's been quite a different story for them. They were riding a 5-game win streak with more recent victories over Georgetown and Villanova. Friday evening in Hinkle, some nice distribution of the ball. Things off to an exciting start against the Hoyas. Upe Atosu from range, off the glass and in to end the first. Dogs up 21-10. This is what you want to see for Coach Godlewski. Everybody contributing. 3 Bulldogs finish in double digits in the scoring department. Butler edges out the Hoyas by 18, 60-42. Sunday, the ladies, was their shot at Nova, and just like the men, back and forth the whole game. Opened up the second quarter on a 12-0 run, but the Wildcats found a way back in it. Third quarter, Cats up by 3. Kristen Spoiler picks the pocket and goes the other way for 2. Butler had 17 steals in this one. Spoiler had an explosive outing with 25 points, 6 steals, and 8 boards. This helps Butler edge out the Wildcats 63-61. They now have sole possession of second in conference, only behind the 13th ranked DePaul. They have a chance to hand them a loss coming Friday along with Marquette on Sunday. Butler softball kicked off the season in thrilling fashion in Rosemont, Illinois as part of the Rambler Rumbler Invitational. Carly Ricketts had herself a weekend with 2 home runs and 5 RBIs. Their opponents included wins over Green Bay and Western Illinois. In total, the Bulldogs outscored the opposition 26-11 in the opening weekend. They'll enjoy some warmer weather in Florida this coming weekend when they take part in the Madeira Beach Spring Games. But it should be an entertaining week. I'm really looking forward to it. Speaking of entertaining weeks, I want to talk to you. You had a chance to meet a former Oscar winner. We had the Oscars this past Sunday. What was that like?
Yeah, Marshall Curry. He just had so much to say about storytelling because he does a lot of documentaries. And so seeing him win his first Oscar just was like, hey, I met him. And it was just a really cool experience.
That sounds cool.
Down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for this week's Butler Collegian Newscast. To stay up to date with all things news on Butler's campus, visit us at thebutlercollegian.com or on Twitter at Butler Collegian. I'm Nikki Clark.
I'm Catalina Gallegos.
And I'm Jake Bedell.
Have a great week, dogs.